Dearica Hamby drops her lawsuits during the CBA negotiations, and it puts player protections back in focus. Welcome. Club Hoops podcast hosted by me, Natalie Franklin.
And Gregory Franklin, the dad, right? It's a father-daughter podcast, so I'm here.
It's a father-daughter women's basketball podcast,
Yes.
to be very clear, just so people know what they've clicked on, what you're getting into. It's a father-daughter women's basketball podcast. Thank you for joining us. We are talking about how Dearica Hamby and the Aces have agreed to dismiss her pregnancy discrimination lawsuit. But first, I just want to do a quick check-in. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you for asking. I always appreciate it when you're interested in my well-being. I feel like being a girl dad, that's important for me to get that validation that, you're as interested in me as I am in you and all that good stuff. But at the same time, I got to ask, how are you?
I'm good, and I'm very interested in my inheritance, so I'm always going to check on you, make sure you're okay.
Okay.
Um,
Keep it millennial, right? Keep it straight millennial. Yeah.
Besides that, I'm doing great. I'm ready to talk about the things going on in the WNBA, specifically with this lawsuit. So let's get into it. So just to remind everybody, Dearica used to play for the Aces. She's won a ring with them, but she announced she was pregnant in the fall of 2022, and she was traded January 2023, and she claimed that it was due to her pregnancy. She filed a complaint against the Aces and the WNBA in August of 2024, alleging unlawful workplace discrimination and retaliation regarding her pregnancy with her second child. In the lawsuit, she alleged notable changes in how the Aces treated her after she announced her pregnancy publicly. So, cut to, I believe, May of this year, 2025, a judge dismissed her lawsuit against the WNBA because she was saying they didn't do their investigation properly against the Aces. But the Aces did get some punishment. They had to give up a first-round pick. Becky Hammond was suspended for 2 games, so they did receive some type of punishment. So that was in May of 2025 that case was dismissed against WNBA, but the judge said she could still sue the Aces. And now here we are in December of 2025, and both parties have agreed to dismiss this lawsuit. I believe it's called, let me look it up, dismissing the case with prejudice, which means Dearica cannot refile the same suit against the team, and each party will pay their own attorney fees. A quote from Hamby from Front Office Sports said that she said, I stand by what I said in the initial complaint, and that matter has been resolved. So I'm left to believe, I don't believe she got any money. That I feel like we're just left to assume that it just kind of came to a halt, which makes sense if you were unable to sue the WNBA. I didn't see how you were going to be able to sue the Aces, specifically when they received a punishment. I also think that it's really hard, unfortunately, if you're a woman and or a woman of color, if you're a person of color, there's a thing called microaggressions, and that's really hard to prove. Like, I don't doubt she experienced something and that in her mind deemed discrimination, be it direct comments, be it, some actions, some cold shoulders. We did hear that she was promised tuition for her daughter and certain type of housing, and that no longer happened after she announced her pregnancy. So I don't doubt something happened, but unfortunately, just by the court standards, she was unable to prove certain things that could have led to more compensation, I'll say. What are your thoughts?
So first of all, I think these matters are complex. I'm not surprised, but I am somewhat shocked it went as long as it went, particularly since the WNBA must have felt something was not right because they had Becky suspended. They lost draft choices. That action in and of itself, it's not an admission of guilt, but it is sort of an indication that something happened. Also, more importantly, I would say this, that when they fired their GM, okay, and I don't know if there's an HR component or element, but I would think that, in this day and age, you have a human resources, department person, whatever, that knows these laws around, workplace discrimination, this a pregnant lady, and then you're doing things to her that may not be right, and we should deal with that. I would also say that I'm going to discount the whole notion that there was quote unquote microaggression that may have been generated by, maybe race, ethnicity, and all of that. Because I think in these situations, given the reaction, and the reaction came after winning a championship, the reaction came after announcing a pregnancy, I think it was solely based on maybe a perception that Dearica wasn't as committed, you know what I mean, as the rest of the team. I don't know how they get there. Okay, this is Dearica living her life and doing the things she needs to do to have a family and all of that. But I don't know how you get to, hey, she's not committed. But it is possible, and certainly in this case, maybe that was it. I really am somewhat shocked that the settlement, and Derek is satisfied with it, that the settlement maybe didn't include some sort of financial compensation, just based on, I don't know what you call it, mental anguish or suffering or whatever. But, if they got to a place where both parties are satisfied, their legal fees are paid, we're going to dismiss it with prejudice, so you can't come back again. There's not going to be an admission of guilt. Derek is standing by what she says, and I'm sure the Aces are standing by what they did. If they're all happy with it, then great. But I would encourage, and I think the NBA probably did this because big organizations have this in place. I would encourage the WNBA, if they haven't done this, to send out a memo sort of reiterating the league's policy, on pregnancy or maternity leave or those things, and reiterating to the teams and the team owners and the teams front offices that, one, it won't be tolerated, and two, we don't want to see this ever happen again. So I'm glad it ended where Dearica, feels that she's satisfied. It just really went on too long for me. 2002 to 2005 what appeared to be a slam dunk issue for me. I mean, it either happened or it didn't happen, and we need to move on. But the WNBA chiming in and suspending Becky and losing draft choices, something happened.
Just want to be clear, there was no settlement. It was
Right.
dismissed. So that's not a settlement. It was just like dismissed. In my opinion, it's dismissed because there's not enough evidence to prove whatever Dearica is charging the Aces with. Number two, the race and ethnicity is used as, I use that as an example. If you are a person of color, you understand microaggression.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm not using that as example for I'm just saying, if those out there can relate, if you're a woman, if you're a person of color, you understand microaggressions. And I feel like that's what Dearica went through. And that's why it's hard to prove microaggression. That's why they're called microaggression. That's why people are able to gaslight you, because they're microaggression. Love Becky down. But the fact that Becky's like, I was supportive. Oh, this is a mathematics thing. We could get 3 bodies for her 1 contract. It's a little bit of gaslighting, especially since we know, according to Dearica, things were said to her by Becky, like, you're a bit of a question mark right now. Now, obviously, that's not her outright saying, you're getting
Right,
pregnant all the
right,
time.
right,
You're always
right.
knocked up. I'm trying to build a dynasty here. Close your legs.
Uh,
Like, obviously, she's not explicitly
right,
saying that, but
right,
this
right.
microaggression, you're a question mark. Like, instead of congratulations, oh my gosh, when's the baby
Yeah,
shower?
yeah,
Becky's like, and then also, this is cut to this season. No shade to Cheyenne, but I feel like Cheyenne coming to the team was more of a PR addition, because Cheyenne was
yeah,
pregnant
yeah, yeah,
when they signed her. They were very supportive of her pregnancy and her getting back, into playing shape. They even played her a couple times in the postseason and towards the end of the season. I feel like that was all PR from the Aces. Like, look, we love moms. We love pregnant moms to be. We signed Cheyenne. Dearica's crazy. Um, I feel for Dearica because I don't think she's completely satisfied. Like you said, there might have been agreements that happened we don't know about, right? Maybe all she wanted was an
yeah,
apology, right? At the end
yeah.
of the day. she couldn't get, because she's also claiming moving her into the LA market caused her to lose money. And, she had her things. But maybe at the end of the day, she's like, okay, well, if I can't get money, I just want an apology and acknowledgement that I was treated poorly. And that could have been satisfactory enough to her. But I think this is in any workplace, be it sports, non sports, wherever you work. If you are a minority or a woman, or both, you know what microaggressions are. And they're very hard to prove. And they're almost very hard to explain to people. Because if you just tell someone who is not familiar, doesn't have those like experiences, hearing that you're a question mark, they might be like, well, maybe, like you said, maybe they were just questioning your commitment. But okay, why are we questioning my commitment when I'm just family planning? I'm the age where you're supposed to be growing your family with my husband, and because I'm having a baby or I express that I'm pregnant again, I'm a question mark.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, I think it's just I think the point you made about all teams need to look at this as an example of you really have to be mindful of how you handle the women in your league that are having children, and also the unbirthing women in your league having children. Because there's a lot of women, for example, Brown Stewart, she has kids, she did not birth them, but she's still a parent.
Yeah. Yeah.
She'll still need to take time for her kids or do things for her kids. And that's something they're trying to address in the CBA negotiations, which we will get to. But I just think that the Aces might have not, and we're Aces
Here
fans.
we are.
I
We
want
are.
to full disclosure, but even I can admit they didn't handle this right at all. Even that game I mean, they can't control their fans, but the game Dearica played in Las Vegas after the lawsuit was announced and they booed her. Which is crazy to me that she's getting booed, because if you go to any WNBA game, it's majority
Yeah.
women.
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
It's majority
Yeah.
women. What are you booing her
Yeah.
for? Do you have anything to add? Sorry, that pause was for
Oh,
you.
oh, I saw the coffee cup go up. I didn't recognize that pause
Yeah,
being
no,
for
that was
me.
me. That was my mic drop,
Oh,
my
all right, all right.
coffee.
Excuse me. No, look, I totally hear you, with everything you're saying. Being my background and being, how I went through, the workplace and all of that. I am just somewhat amazed that this issue wasn't like resolved and figured out, within that organization, because legally, even though the ACEs came out okay in this regard, but legally, the laws around workplace discrimination are pretty clear, and they're pretty federalized in most cases as well. And it would appear that the WNBA has its own policy as well, based on the punishment it threw down on the Aces. So again, I'm just happy both got to a place where they can live with with the decision that was made, uh, and I would feel, not that it's important, 100% important to me, but I would feel somewhat satisfied if the league office sent out information regarding this to refresh the memory, or refresh folks' local policies on how we deal with these issues where players are pregnant and they need time off, and it's not that they're not committed to the team, but players have lives. I would feel somewhat comfortable if that happened, more comfortable if that happened. But for the most part, like I said, I'm happy. I'm happy that it got settled where both parties have something they can live with.
I think even though there are labor laws, again, there are just a lot of ways around labor
There
laws.
are.
Of course, to keep bringing up microaggression, but even just how you treat someone, it's not against the law to like all of a sudden stop talking to someone,
No,
right? Like you'd
no,
really have to prove this is retaliation. And I think like we point out the Aces got a punishment. So I liked your point of something
something
happened.
happened.
Like the WNBA agreed with Dearica that something was not right, because even Becky saying, well, it's a numbers thing, that's to me is how you protect yourself in these arguments of retaliation, right? Because Dearica is a great player. This isn't like you just gave up Kia Stokes. Sorry, I don't know why she just had to catch a stray, but this isn't like you traded Kia Stokes. Like, this is an all-star.
Oh
This is someone who
God.
averages like 18 points a game. Like, it wasn't just anybody. And I think they really tried to use, well, it's a numbers game. And to your point, yes, there are laws in place to protect against this, but there's so many loopholes and like, well, that's not what I meant. The intention versus the impact of things that are said or done. I think the Aces fired their GM shortly after this lawsuit was filed. That to me was very telling. They didn't say it was because of the lawsuit, but I'm going to assume it was
Yep.
because Natalie, who was their former GM, and by the way, they don't even have a GM. It's been like 2 years. They still have a GM. But Natalie had promised Dearica certain things, and after she announced her pregnancy, there was no follow through.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
So there's things like that. I do like your point of the WNBA being more mindful that, hey, you are in a league full of women and women are mothers. And then even the mothers that aren't, physically giving birth, they are mothers. So let's keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Um, I was listening to a little bit of Candace Parker on All the Smoke podcast with Matt Barnes and Stack. And she was talking about when she was pregnant. Her pregnant wasn't planned based on what I heard, but even her, she was like, marking the calendar from like when she gave birth to training to get back. She was working out well into her third trimester. So I think when you're a female athlete and you do elect to give birth to your own child, there's already enough pressure and stress of getting back in gameplay shape because your body is how you make money.
Yeah.
Right? It's not, no shade to any of us sitting at a desk, but it's not like you just go sit at a desk all day and then go home. Like you have to be in a certain shape. This is how you make money. So I'm sure that stress you're already putting on yourself as the athlete is enough. But then here comes the organization making comments or making you feel guilty for expanding your family. It can't be easy. So I feel for all the players or even all the women athletes who have ever experienced that, because I'm sure it's like super stressful. Because it's not like the men's game. No shade to the men, but I feel like NBA players just pop up with kids and you're like, you had a kid?
But
At most, they leave the game during halftime, like Gobert did the other night. By the way, he did have another baby.
okay.
They leave the game at halftime and then they're like, "Yeah, I had a kid. I'll be back next week." Right? They don't have those same stressors of, "Oh no, I'm pregnant. I'm out for like 6 to 9 months. And then I got another 6 to 9 months that I need to get back into shape." Um, it's rough.
Well,
As a non-mother,
but
I toast
but
you.
but again, one, it's not a fair comparison, the men and the women. First of all,
It isn't.
it's not a fair.
That's my
Yeah,
point.
it's not a fair comparison. The other part, and I didn't really want to get into this because this continues to beat the WNBA down, but this cannot be the first time a player has turned up pregnant.
Obviously.
Cannot be. And the reaction that the Aces had to that, or let's say it's one person, let's say it's the GM, or Becky, I don't know. The reaction they had to that was totally unacceptable, and it was deemed unacceptable by the WNBA. Now, whether it met the legal test of liability, the federal court said it didn't. Clearly, state court, if they were in state court said, it didn't. So that was a different story, which led to the dismissal with prejudice. But I go back to how, if you have someone in your front office who's your HR person, even your GM, I don't know the experience of the GM they let go, but they should know that, one, this is not how the way they dealt with Dearica. If these things were going on, folks weren't speaking to her. There was a perception that, you're not speaking to me because I'm pregnant. You think I'm not committed to the team. If those, and let's say she reported it to the appropriate folks, which is, I'm feeling like she did. There's just, it's amazing to me that it really wasn't properly addressed. The booing and all of that, I don't know what story the fans were told or what their perception was of the situation. But yeah, the booing was a bit much, I think. I remember when that occurred, but it's amazing to me that no one in that organization could deal with this, at least at the time it occurred.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. And I just think that, as we right now transitioned into the CBA negotiations, this is something that they're trying to address in CBA negotiations, benefits for maternity leaves, for even non-birthing mothers. And Cheryl Swoops brought this up in a podcast I was watching about her. She mentioned that, with taking away housing, a lot of these players bring their kids with them when
Yeah.
they're playing in whatever city. And so while people are saying, well, isn't that enough? 200,000 enough, da 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 for you? Okay, it might be enough for like a single person, maybe. But what if I have kids? What if I have two kids? Like, what if I'm bringing, kids and my partner? So I think these are things, Dearica's situation is, something the CBA is trying to, I'll say, address, right? So these things are less occurring. Speaking of the CBA negotiation, there's some updates that happened. We now know that the players are asking for double the revenue share at about 30%.
Yeah, it
Um,
started out at they were asking for 33%, and then the league is always, I mean, the owners have always offered, I think, 15%. So now that's where we're at with the league offering 15% and the players, they reduced theirs to 30%.
Right. And also I think was interesting, they've also proposed a developmental, am I saying that right? Developmental league
Yep.
for the college players. And of course, they want the roster size expanded. This is all in the effort, obviously, to address roster sizes, but it's also to address how pointless sometimes the draft feels, because you draft all the way, until about a three rounds, and you're not taking all these players. You don't have enough space. So I think that's another thing it's addressing. And I think the developmental league will be great because it models after the NBA, when and they want to get two-way players is what they call it, NBA. So they want to be able to sign two developmental players. And I think that's great. I mean, we're talking about grow the league, grow the rosters. Let's go. And that would justify the WNBA trying to have a combine. Because I'm still trying to figure out, why are you having a combine when you can't even draft
Yeah.
players? Let's address that roster size.
But there's still the quality of life issues. I mean,
Of
if
course.
you're talking about the combine, starting the season earlier, you're talking about developmental players, and they're first on I think a short-term contract. You still haven't. I don't think you've normalized the business totally yet. There's still, in my opinion, there's still quite a ways off. I mean, they're on every issue, on every issue. None of this really kind of connects the dots for me, at least not yet. I understand the salary issue, and I think the league wants to increase the salary as well. But with that comes some other things that they also want to do. Call them takeaways, call them whatever you want to call them. But I just think that these dots haven't been connected for me. And if they haven't been connected for me, they probably haven't been connected for the players as well. So, having said that, you're still quite a ways away. I don't know. I mean, we don't know, the tone and tenor of these negotiations. Are they still somewhat collegial? Are they aggressive? Are we sure that, folks have drawn lines in the sand and we can't move any further, can't move any closer together, and we continue to move further apart? To me, the revenue share issue, if you're talking about 30% versus the 15% they're offering, clearly the league has some concerns and the owners have some concerns whether or not this growth trend is going to continue. Are we going to make the kind of money that's being forecasted? So, I mean, there's work to be done on both sides.
I'm from the tone of what I'm hearing coming out of the quotes from Unrivaled, the quotes from Adam Silver, which I'll get into. They're not making any progress. I'm not saying it's a hostile environment, but it doesn't seem like either side is budging. They're holding the line on both sides. Adam Silver said that we're available to do whatever is necessary to help get a deal done. Meaning, I think now he's gonna go in the room. We acknowledge that our players deserve to be paid significantly more than they have so far, based on the increase of success of the league. And it's just a question now of finding a meeting of minds in terms of what is a fair deal. I remain optimistic we'll get something done. So, with that being said, Brianna Stewart on Adam Silver and Mark Tatum potentially joining the bargaining tables. Here's what Stewie had to say. I didn't see his comments about that last night, but what we're doing now isn't really getting us anywhere. So if that means Adam and Mark need to come to the table, we're more than happy to have that. Just making sure everybody understands what we want and how we feel.
So let me
Dun dun
so let
dun.
me say something about that.
Say it.
Why is Adam Silver doing all the talking? Where is Kathy?
Oh, they're
Where is
Kathy's
Kathy?
bad PR.
Why is he carrying the water on this publicly?
We haven't seen Kathy since the finals, child.
Absolutely. So that in and of itself tells me, okay, so you've removed her from discussions, equation. She's not the face anymore. That's strange. That
They
is
put
very,
her on ice.
well. This is not the time to put her on ice. She, leaders lead. She needs to step up and lead. But for Adam Silver, who by the way, I think the NBA, I think they have 60% of it or 40% of the, I think it's 40%. It might be 40, might be 40. Their ownership or their investment in the WNBA, to me, doesn't mean that okay, we own a percentage. It's not even a majority. It might be 60. Let me just refresh that.
Well, remember there's other entities like Condoleezza
Yeah,
Rice
yeah,
and,
yeah.
there's other people have entities.
Well, let's
Yeah.
just say with owning their piece, I don't think it's enough for them to say, Kathy, get out of the way. We'll take it from here. I just don't. When
But I just
when
think
she's been visible.
right, and I think it's just a PR tactic. Like, I think it's just I 100% think she's in these rooms and 100% think she's a participant of these negotiations. Public facing, though, I think they've reeled it back on her being public facing because it was ugly for a minute, right? And everyone, and just like we talked about the opinion, what's it, the court of public
Court of
opinion
public opinion.
was not in her favor. It was pretty bad. So I think taking her out of the public is a tactic to kind of at least calm the media down around, painting Kathy as the enemy or the WNBA's enemy. Even though we've said on this show, Adam Silver is just as much as the enemy as Kathy, and Adam's not getting enough smoke as far as I'm concerned because Adam is Kathy's boss. Hello. So I just think it's a PR thing to not have her. Now, mind you, why is he talking about this at the NBA Cup?
Right,
That's another
right.
question we could ask.
I mean, it's
Why are we talking about
well,
it?
look, he tends to Adam Silver. He tends to get into things and then when they're not quite right, he finds a way out. I'll give him credit for that. Like right, even with the NBA Cup, now all of a sudden he wants to move it out of Vegas because he's not selling enough tickets in Vegas. So what he'll come on and
Right.
say, hey, I want to move next year. We're going to probably put this at some big college or whatever, whatever, whatever. Okay, but initially it was we wanted in Vegas, and because we want the star, we want the lights, the stars, we want it to be these things, and so he manages to wiggle his way out of these quote unquote dilemmas that he gets himself into. Him coming, yeah, he's Kathy's boss, but him coming to her rescue when she hasn't, in my opinion, she hasn't put the time in to say, I need to be rescued. Yeah, it's been bad. Okay, it's going to be bad. It's been bad. Yeah, the public opinion of the whole situation, the public opinion of Kathy, it's not resonating with folks. But I don't think she needs to be rescued. She needs to work her way out of this.
I don't think she needs to be rescued either. I said it's all PR.
Yeah,
They just were like, hey, let's just do these negotiations. If we need a comment, just direct them to Adam's office, or Adam's gonna go out and give the updates. Don't worry about it. That it's just PR. She's involved, but it's just PR. Now all these quotes coming from WNBA players are coming from Unrivaled because that they have media day and they're gearing up for that. And Skylar Diggins did say they will be having meetings while they are down in Miami, which is great because it's a lot of WNBA players there, so you will have high attendance of these meetings, much like you did All-Star Weekend. But the tone of what we're hearing is that nothing's getting done.
Yeah.
Once again, there is nothing getting done. They might do another extension, because I think the deadline is what, January 7th? I couldn't be making that up. January 9th, something like that. This is just off the top of the dome. It's in January. And again, hard to get things done during the holidays,
Hard.
much like their last deadline that was like in the middle of Thanksgiving. Um, I like the idea of a developmental league. I like the idea of each team getting two developmental players. You've touched on it lightly, but I'll just be explicit. The main concern is the revenue
Yeah.
share.
Yeah.
That's their, as I've said before, that's their Moby Dick. I think everything else, because they're asking for more security. Do I think they're going to be like hard about security? No, I think their main thing is revenue share.
I want to make sure. I want to point this out. I want to point this out.
Point it out.
Yeah, the revenue share is big, but the owners are probably thinking, is this the right model for where we are today? We know that the league is growing. We've added expansion teams. We understand great players are coming from the college ranks. I'm not taking the owner's side, but from a business perspective, I think they want to be sure. Okay, because you're talking about sustainability versus player equity. So those are things that you really have to consider. Second thing, and this is probably the most important thing of all of this. This has the potential, this agreement has the potential to shape generations of women's athletics. Because what they're wanting is essentially equality. Okay. And this could be the example in other sports. I don't know, like soccer and women's soccer. Yeah,
Soccer.
women's
Yeah.
soccer and those things. And so that part, it's important. This is an important drill. And I will also add to that this is it's more than a labor negotiation. It is a defining moment. It is a defining moment. And so they have to be careful. The Players Association, they have to be careful and make sure they get this right. They have to make sure they get this right. Okay. This is extremely important. Extremely important. And so I get it. Take your time, do what you have to do. If there's a lockout, well, so be it. But the history here, when you look back on it, look back on the history, it's going to be landmark. So
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think that's why they are really like, no, the players. They're like, no, 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 no. And I read something too that made a good point of, nowadays players are coming in with their own brands.
yeah,
They're coming in like own established brands, their own audience. It's not like it was even 3 years ago where it's like, oh, well, people only know you because you're in the WNBA, or we're giving you a platform. If you're someone, obviously extreme example, but if you're a Paige Beckers, I don't need your platform. I had a platform in high school. Like, I had a platform before I even came in here.
yep,
You need me. I don't need y'all.
yep,
Like,
yep,
so pay me.
yep,
So it's a great place to be in women's sports, that now women's sports have their own brand. They're coming in and they don't especially if you're not going to pay them, they don't need your platform. I mean, if what if what Kathy said was true about Caitlyn, she's sorely mistaken. Caitlyn does not need the WNBA. Caitlyn can go to the big three right now if she
yeah,
wants to,
yeah,
Kathy.
yeah, yeah.
She can go play for Ice
Well,
Cube,
look,
okay?
look, Kate.
And make more money.
Well, most of Caitlin's money comes from off the court. So she didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm playing in WNBA. That's fine. But her money comes from off court things. And if you look at, this is maybe an extreme example, but if you look at Stud Buds, you look at how they created a platform. These look, Courtney Williams is a great guard. Okay, great guard. Is she a superstar
Mhm.
guard? No, not a superstar. But she
Right.
captured the interest of the fan base, the WNBA fan base, not just the fans that follow her team during the All-Star game with their continuous streaming of live activities. So today,
Yeah.
in today's world, you don't necessarily need to tie yourself. It helps. I'll agree with that. To a larger platform such as the WNBA. You can, over time, create your own energy around your own platform. Big stars like Paige, big stars like Caitlyn, I would even say Asia, if they put their money and their energy behind just developing their own platform, psh, they would be great.
I completely agree. Well, that's our episode on Dearica Hamby and the CBA negotiations. So, once again, just to recap, Dearica dropped her lawsuit and no progress has been made with the CBA negotiations. And we all sit and wait in suspense.
And
Uh,
and and hope it ends well. We hope these negotiations end well.
exactly. Hit the like button, subscribe, uh, hit that little dingy bell so you know when we post new episodes. Thank you for joining us. If there were any pauses, any static, we apologize. Again, full disclosure, we were having some technical difficulties
Yeah.
today,
Yeah.
but I think we managed to get it done. We got it done. So thank you. See you next time. Bye.
Bye, folks. Bye, folks.